Hi, St. Patrick's. Good to be with you today. This is the first of 3 short videos I'm doing to be sure to include everyone in the things I shared at our annual parish meeting on January 27. I talked about 3 different areas, and one of those was the long-term financial sustainability of St. Patrick's. To follow along with what I want to share, there's a document in the email I sent. You might want to download that first if this is on your computer, or you could probably, it's a PDF, so if you have a smartphone, you could put it in there as well. You might want to reference that as I'm sharing. And then also there's just a copy of our annual budget, so you can have that in front of you as well for reference. So as we think about the long-term life of St. Patrick's, and as we did our strategic planning a year ago, one of the things we said is that we would like to get to a place where St. Patrick's can have a home, its own space for worship and ministry, which is an exciting and great dream. But as we look to that, there's a gap between our current financial reality and living into that reality. Also, there are probably a couple other realities realities in the life of our church that also need to be given attention to as they look to the long term. We want to have a home, number one. Number two, we probably need to think about long-term revenue so we can invest in ministry programs, especially children and youth, but other things, both in our parish and outwardly. For example, I think we'd love to do a lot more than $100 a month to support the Petersons. And then secondly, in terms of staffing, one of our challenges is that, right now, to our rector's salary, that's my salary, but I'm using the word rector to kind of depersonalize it because this is not a frustration for me or really about me. It's just about the long-term viability and sustainability of our church. We're really challenged in funding that because we're probably 2/3 of market in terms of that. It may sound kind of crass to say it that way, but let me explain it this way. Right now, because of our unique financial situation as a family, I'm able to be full-time and be paid kind of under what would be normal for a rector. But if something were to happen to me, or if God called us to a new place, I would think as a parish, we want to replace me with someone with a commensurate experience and maybe not quite as old, but someone probably might have a family. And to do that, we'd have to have a salary that could support a family, plus insurance, plus retirement. And my salary right now, basically, retirement's kind of baked into it. I pay for it but it's paid to me, then I invest it, and then I get insurance through Trudy. So that's a challenge. We're about probably $30,000 to $40,000 under what it would cost to bring in a replacement rector. So if you put those 3 things together, we want to have a home, and whether that's a long-term lease, even a partnership, or something we own, that's a lot more than we spend now. We spend about $1,000 a month now. That's going to be more like $6,000 a month expenditure. So there's a gap there. And then our programs are pretty bare bones. I think we'd love to have more resources to invest in training and equipping and resourcing our different ministries. So there's a gap there. And I think we'd like to be in a place long-term where if we want to, find someone new to replace me. And by the way, I'm not planning on leaving. Just so you know, this is not veiled about this. Just helping us be clear about kind of where we need to go long-term. There's a gap. There's a gap between what we have in terms of resources now and what we want to have. So the positive side of that is the budget we now have, which is about $97,000 for this year. We're probably slated to be a little bit ahead of that. So we're paying the bills we're committed to now. So we're not like in a financial crisis or anything. That's not the story at all. But there's a gap between where we are and where we want to be. And one of the things that is really important to know as we face into that is what's in the document I sent to you. That's the January through August 2018 giving. And that chart tells us really kind of a challenging reality for us as a parish. And that's 4.5 households. And what I mean by that is 4 households plus half of what one household gives funds half our budget. So we have 4 households that if any one of those, for whatever reason, needed to leave St. Pat's, we'd have a financial crisis. And so for an organization like ours, a local parish, to support it long term, we need to build a broader base of giving. And so if you look at that chart, you can see that the curve kind of is level and then kind of shoots up pretty drastically. And so the reason that's important for us to see is not because I think we can sit down today and just fix that, but twofold. So we have a realistic picture of where we are and the gap between where we want to go. And then secondly, so we can begin to pray. So what we need is God to work. I think he needs to work a couple places. One is he probably needs to work in us. I think there's a challenge for a number of us to step into a full biblical pattern of giving. And if that's where you are, I just invite you to pray about that and encourage that. Some people are giving very sacrificially. It's not about numbers, but if you're not yet giving at a level that matches what the scriptures teach, I'd encourage you to begin to move toward that. That's part of it, I think. Part of it is, I think, we're a small parish, and to get where we want to go, we're going to have to ask God to add to our numbers. We can't, will that to happen. We can't manipulate that to happen. But how can we posture ourselves to do better at welcoming and reaching out? But even those things are ultimately they're out of my control or our control. They're really a work of God. So as I shared with this vestry a few months ago, we looked at this for the first hour of our meeting, and spent the second hour praying and just crying out to God and praying for us as a parish and praying for our mission. So I want to invite you to take this information and, number one, begin to commit this to prayer. And what I ask you to pray is, hey, God, show us what we're supposed to learn from this reality. What is it you're saying to us, and where do you want to lead us? Is our vision right? Is it aligned with you? And how do you want to if it is, how do you want to take us there? Second, teach us how to live generously and walk more fully and faithfully in that. And then third, God, just you're the provider. Would you not just guide us, but resource us? So I could say a lot more about that, but that's a kind of an abbreviated version of what I shared. But if you have any questions, you can feel free to call me or text me or email me. But also, I'd encourage you to talk to any of our vestry members. Talk to David Marks, Laura Carr, or Andrew Campbell about that, because any of us can talk about it. We've all been thinking about that together. And I think together, like I said before, I really feel like the message of this is not discourage. The message is invitation. God, what are you saying? God, what are you doing? God, where do you want to take us? Thanks for watching this. Take care.